Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking about episode 8 of season 3 of Game of Thrones called The Second Sons. And overall, this is a pretty solid episode. It's, for the most part, more moving the various pieces around the chessboard, just waiting for that. It's very obvious that we're waiting for the big old season finale for everything just to explode and, go to hell and, well, do you think that maybe somebody might die? I mean, I know that's a real stretch on Game of Thrones, but could be. Oh, that would have been so much funnier if I'd done it in that, like, the Hong Kong Phooey could be. Okay, well, whatever. So, let's get right into it. We start off with the whole Arya trying to take down Sandor, and of course, she's no match for him. And it does speak to Arya well that she realizes, like, yeah, this is not gonna end well for me. And I really do like these interactions that Arya and Sandor have in the books. Now, I guess I should remind everybody that I have indeed read all the books, but it's been about 2 years since I read any of them, and I've only read them once. So if I forget some of the details, do forgive me. Also, I won't spoil anything big, but I might talk about a few details here and there that are from the books, just in order to make a proper comparison. But anyway, the interaction between those two really was pretty interesting in the books. We got to see in the earlier part of the series, Sandor spending some time with Sansa, and now here he is spending some time with the other Stark girl. Two very polar opposite characters, both bouncing off the same character and getting very interesting and very different reactions from them. And I gotta say, it really is just simply great fodder for really interesting moments, a lot of interesting characterization going on. Now, I have a feeling that obviously a lot of the journey that these two characters go on is probably going to be cut for time, and that I'm all right with that. I really do. Well, since I know the books, I pretty much have a good idea of what the big bang is going to be at the end of the season. So I'm okay with them skipping over a lot of things to get us in that direction sooner. And yeah, one thing that we must remember, and as this scene proves, that one of the constants of the Game of Thrones universe is it kind of sucks to be Arya Stark. Just when she thinks something good is going to happen to her, something even worse comes along. Now, of course, I do like that the Hound is quite quick to point out that there are worse men out there in the world than me. Sansa, well, she didn't exactly learn that the hard way, but she got a very cruel education in that particular fact. Well, actually, she was almost gang raped by an angry mob, so I suppose that maybe that does count, and the Hound was right to bring that up to Arya. But yeah, it's time for another Stark girl to go to the Sandor Clegane School of Life, and yeah, this is going to be some interesting stuff. Let's see. We'll save talking about Sansa for later on, and of course we don't really get to see Robb or Cat this time around, and that makes sense. There's too much else going on with them. So, since we're talking about young folks, let's go and talk about Gendry. Now, I really do like that little conversation that he has with Melisandre. We're getting more details of her being a slave filled in, and if I remember right, this isn't something that was really brought to light until about Book 5. So bringing this element in earlier, I think really does serve Melisandre well as a character. It really helps illustrate to us just why it is she is so embraced this religion. If she's gone from being a slave to being this woman who essentially is the power behind the throne of a king, and a guy who has about as good a shot as anybody of being the whole king of a whole continent, well, faith seems to have paid off for Melisandre, so it's really not too surprising that she's riding that wagon wholeheartedly. And I did like how that moment, that little line she says to Gendry about how you think this is all going to be a mistake and that you're going to be charge for every little bite. Well, one, that was a really nice move on her part in lulling Gendry into a false sense of security. You know, the whole they never see the knife coming. Now, frankly, I don't really know why the Lord of Light would be particularly care if the person knew what was coming. I mean, if you're going to be burned at the stake, you sort of, that isn't something that's like, hey guys, how you doing? Like, hey, whoa, what's going on? Why am I being burned at the stake? I mean, you see that coming. But, of course, burning poor Gendry at the stake doesn't seem to be what's on her mind, at least at the moment. And also give Melisandre credit. Gendry's what, 19, 20 years old? If you want to lull a 19, 20-year-old guy into a false sense of security where you can tie him up and stick leeches to him, that's a pretty darn good and almost certainly foolproof strategy for getting him in exactly that position. I love how Melisandre tries to. He says oh yeah, I'm doing this because Sir Davos demanded proof. Now, of course, she's a zealot, so of course this is all perfectly justifiable in her mind. But she's looking to make a political point just as much as she's looking to serve roller. And yeah, of course, the whole thing with the leeches definitely confirms that Gendry is for sure taking the place of Edric Storm from the books. I don't have a problem with that. Edric Storm never struck me as a particularly interesting character, and the way they've been doing Gendry, I actually like him quite a bit. I really do want to see how things shake out for him. Now, continuing talking about the folks over at Dragonstone, I get to see Davos is, slowly but surely coming along with that reading thing. Good for him. But what I really like is that scene between him and Stannis, where he basically even says to Stannis, you know this is wrong, and you came to me so that I could tell you that this was wrong. And of course, Davos is completely and utterly nailing it right on the head. No matter what he says, no matter what he might have saw on that fire, Stannis is not 100% on board with this. And while he is kind of a jerk, at the end of the day, Stannis is not really an evil guy. I mean, he even regretted what happened to Renly, to some degree. He's a guy who is sort of, it is like he said, he has that whole vision thing going on where he thinks that, he's this holy savior. He's of course also a very ambitious man, but he's not a man without morals. He's not a man without kindness. We saw that interacting with his wife. But he's also a man who can be extremely ruthless. Just like many of the characters in Game of Thrones, Stannis is a complicated person. He has good and bad sides to him. You have moments where he's like, yeah, Stannis is doing the right thing here. It's like, and other moments where it's like, no, Stannis, you're being really horrible here. And that's what I like. That is what makes these books and this TV show so great, is that everybody is so rich and multifaceted. Not really too much else to say about what's going on over at Dragonstone. Although, am I the only one that was wondering when Stannis was giving that speech to Davos about, sacrificing one boy to save a continent and all that? Was he really trying to convince Davos, or was he trying to convince himself? Or simply just to justify himself to the one of the few people in the world whose opinion of him really and truly matters? Davos is one of the few people in the entire world that Stannis cares about their opinion of him. Okay. So, now let's move on to fun times with the Lannisters. And, oh man. You know what, I haven't gone to a huge amount of weddings in my life, but when I have gone to them, they've usually been pretty decent affairs. This is one of those weddings that you just hear about and cannot believe actually happened. It is one of those things where it's hard to believe that human beings could actually act like this. But then this is the Lannisters we're talking about, isn't it? So, not a whole lot to say about what's going on with poor Sir Loras there. He does try that moment where he attempts to start some kind of a bond with Cersei, and of course she immediately just shuts him down. So clearly that's not going to go well. In fact, these two are obviously going to be even more miserable together than Sansa and Tyrion would be, and that's really saying something. And of course, Cersei has to take some time out of the day to threaten to kill Marjorie, after subtly implying that she would have Marjorie killed. She just kind of has to really flat out say it to her, just to make sure that the point got driven home. And this is really what's nice about the whole Cersei versus Marjorie thing. It's very much the old guard versus the young guard. Cersei, is a seasoned player at this. She is a seasoned player of the Game of Thrones, but she's not getting any younger. And as her own father said, she's not as smart as she thinks she is. And so far, for quite a few episodes, it's really been Marjorie who's been on the winning end of this. Marjorie's really been on the offensive. She's been scoring the points. This serves to remind us that whatever's going on, we can't count Cersei out just yet. That she didn't survive, that she didn't get where she was today by being a pushover, or by being somebody who can't lose a few battles but still win the war. So, Cersei might not be as smart as she thinks she is. Is Marjorie as smart as she thinks she is? So, of course, we get to see Tyrion once again trying to make peace with, trying to comfort Sansa. And here, I do like that we do get to see this conversation. The scene with him actually breaking the news to her about them having to get married, it is a real shame that we didn't get to see that. I think that would have been quite interesting. But I suppose, in light of things, if they had done that and then they did this, it probably would have been a little bit on the repetitive side. Delicious tea. Now, I do like that the promise that Tyrion makes here, and it is, of course, very similar to how it went in the books. And I just like that he simply promises that he will not hurt her. And while the whole situation still doesn't go over all that well with Sansa, that really is, under the circumstances, probably the best thing he possibly could have said. And I like how when they're together after the wedding, now you can see it just in Peter Dinkley's performance that Tyrion, at least part of him, really does want to have sex with her. But he, of course, makes the honorable choice and doesn't. And I like how that conversation they said where it's like, I will not touch you until you want me to. And of course Sansa has the whole thing of, what if I never want you to? Now, I thought in the books this scene of what was going on in Tyrion's mind played out a lot better, but of course there we were privy to Tyrion's thoughts, and his lust was a lot more palpable there. But again, there we're privy to his thoughts. Here it's just in Peter Dinkley's performance, and not that he delivers a bad performance. Peter Dinkley does not really do bad performances here, but he definitely downplays it quite a bit more than maybe he should have. On the other hand, if he'd been showing Tyrion to be very, very lustful in that scene, it really would have robbed Tyrion of some of his moral high ground and his likability. So I can't really criticize his choice there too much. It's really, I think, just a very subjective matter of taste thing. And, give Sophie Turner some credit there. She's really doing a nice job as Sansa this time around. And I really like just sort of the subtle look in her face when, Joffrey goes around and like, yeah, I'm gonna have these two guards, I'm gonna come by your room later tonight, have these two guards hold you down and rape you. Because, that's the kind of shit Joffrey does. Because, he's Joffrey. And as these last several episodes have gone out of our way to remind us, Joffrey is one of the most horrible people in the entire world. I mean, him taking particular delight in pointing out that, I'm father of the bride because, had your dad killed. Him, taking away Tyrion's chair just to be a dick to his uncle. at his wedding. Finally a little bit of payback for Joffrey for all those slaps and insults that Tyrion has thrown his way. And of course, poor Tyrion really can't do anything about it. And then when the Tyrion finally gets to sort of snap back at Joffrey, he has to play the dumb drunk and have Tywin smooth things over. Because, well, let's face it, if Joffrey really raised a stink about it, he might just be able to get Tyrion killed. And, well, Tyrion knows how to play the Game of Thrones way too well to let that happen. Not really a huge amount else to say about all of this wedding shenanigans. It really was just there to remind us of how horrible this situation is for everybody, how miserable everybody involved in all of this is, and that, well, basically that Cersei and Joffrey are really horrible and awful people. Not that there was ever any doubt when it came to Cersei, but Margaery having some controlling or at least mitigating effect on Joffrey, well, that had some people kind of wondering if maybe she might be able to turn him into a decent guy. Well, here it is. If him using Ros for target practice didn't confirm it, this sure as heck did. Now let me see here. Not really a whole lot else to say about anything going on there. So let's move over and talk about what was going on with Sam and Gilly this week. Now, I like that one of the names that Sam suggests to Gilly for her son is Duncan. If you're familiar with the written Game of Thrones world, you probably have heard of Ser Duncan the Tall and understand why he was a very well-known person in Westeros' history. Now, one other thing that sort of struck me is Gilly's reaction to the whole baby name thing. She had a somewhat different reaction to the idea of naming her son in the books, but I don't want to talk about that too much because I want to see how this plays out a little bit more and see if she does end up talking about that. So we'll give it just a little bit of time, and if not, I'll try and remember to come back to this. Now, of course, we get to see Sam the White Slayer this episode. This is something that I've been waiting for a really long time, and I can't help but call him that. But did you notice that when the White got stabbed, it was in some ways reminiscent of the way that vampires would die on Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Obviously not the same, but the whole turning to dust or turning to snow and ice or whatever, that's certainly what it is that it reminded me of. And okay, was it just me, or did Sam leave that dagger behind? Because that's what it looked like to me. Not too smart there, Sam. You found the one thing that can kill a white and you leave it behind? On the other hand, this is big. Finally, there's something that works against these damn things and works really well. Might want to share that discovery with folks, Sam. Yeah, well, don't worry about that. Oh, who am I kidding? This is Game of Thrones. Worry about everybody, because there's plenty of open graves just waiting to be filled. Speaking of open graves, we get to see some mercenary guys thrown into them this episode. Not a whole lot to say about the son of the Titan or bastard of the Titan or whatever the heck that guy's name was. They really didn't serve a huge amount of purpose except to be jerks and get killed by Daario. Now, Daario. Here's an interesting guy. If I remember correctly, the way he's shown here is physically he's pretty different than the way I remember Daario being described in the books. Honestly, I have to say, I think this is a serious improvement. And I like how Dany, in her second conversation with him, while she's in the bath, pretty clearly gets a handle on what she needs to do to make Daario stick by her side. And of course, let's face it, gratuitous nudity, That's a proven winner with guys. As Gendry learned to learn the hard way, it packs a punch. And let me see. Okay, just looking at my notes there real quick. Yeah, that seems to cover everything that I have to say about this episode. Again, just a lot of stuff moving around the board, getting ready for the big season finale when boom. And I am not making in any way, shape, or form a spoiler on that, because after 2 seasons, we know season finale equals boom. I mean, last season's finale sure as heck proved that, didn't it, folks? And oh, what a boom it shall be. This is going to be right up there with Baelor. I mean, I know that wasn't exactly the season finale, but when this season's finale drops, oh man, people who have not read the books are just going to be in such a tizzy. It is going to be spectacular. Oh man, I can't wait. Anyway, folks, that's all I got for you this time around. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Till next time, take care and have a good one.